Are you thinking about starting a family law firm and not sure where to start? Or have you already started a family law firm and feeling frustrated that you're not getting the growth that you had imagined? There is a framework and a way to structure your decisions and your thinking to build the family law firm of your dreams. My name is Jeff Hughes and I'm the CEO of Sterling Lawyers. We are a 25+ attorney family law firm doing over $15 million in revenue. And in this video, I will share a 5-step framework to organize your thinking and help allocate resources for maximum results. You'll better understand how to place bets for growth and what to focus on. If you stick around to the end, I will share how one principle helped us not only survive during COVID, but also grow, making our firm much stronger in the process. A question I get a lot is, what does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? I can answer that question from both a point of success and from a point of failure. I have started 13 businesses. Of those 13, 9 of them failed, or they failed to live up to the expectations, so I sold them for what I had into them. Wasn't much of a gain at all. I would consider that a loss. 3 of them, of those 13, turned out to be an extraordinary success. And they're crowning achievements in my professional career thus far. The remaining number 13 is TBD right now, still in its very early growth stage, and we're watching it to see what happens. There are a number of things that are intrinsic to your personality, your character that it takes. But one of them that has been consistently in my answer to that question since the very beginning, and I learned this very early on, is that you have to be comfortable with uncertainty and ambiguity. If you cannot live without the certainty of knowing what's next, entrepreneurialism is not for you. Starting any business, much less a family law firm, is fraught with uncertainty. I can assure you that in our almost 11 years of existence since we've started Sterling Lawyers, we've had a lot of years of ambiguity. In fact, I would even characterize the first 9 years of being ambiguous, really kind of uncertain years, as we plowed all of our growth, all of our resources back into continuing to grow. So every time we made money, we would turn that back around and keep trying to push it forward because we believed on where it was going. We didn't have a framework when we started Sterling Lawyers. We didn't have a methodology for allocating resources, how to think about decision making, and so forth. I came across this kind of recently, and I want to share this with you because, boy, I wish we'd had some of it. Some of it would have been really invaluable to us as we made a lot of decisions that I wish I could go back and have a do-over on. And so this comes from a professor from the University of Virginia, Saras Sarasvathy. Ordinarily, I have a low opinion of academics who want to tell practitioners how to do something that they have never done themselves. I want to listen to someone who's been there, done that. So I don't know her story, but I can tell you this. What she has developed is spot on based on my experience. Overlaying her teaching with my experience in starting businesses, especially our family law firm, she's got some really good stuff here that I want to share with you. So she's got 5 key principles that make up this framework for how to think about starting any business, but I'm going to modify it and focus on how to start a family law firm, how to build and grow a family law firm using this 5-part framework. And for each of them, I'm going to apply each of these principles to family law, and I'm going to share how we did or did not do that well at Sterling Law. Principle number 1, the bird in the hand. This principle is all about starting with what you have right now rather than trying to predict the future. So the bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush is kind of where this comes from, obviously. As you're starting off, and we all have some resources, whether that be something as meager as just our ambition and desire to grow, to something more robust, like we have an extensive network or connections. We have a lot of financial resources. Focus first on what you have in your hand, what you have available to you. Don't focus on predicting the future for future capabilities or resources that you will be able to acquire. It can be tempting to say, well, if I did this, then in 7 months, I'll have a full slate of clients and I'll be able to acquire this or that. That's dangerous. I've done that, and it hasn't led to great places. From a practical standpoint and applying it to family law, it's what resources do you have? Who's in your network? Starting first there, who do you know that you can build relationships with and grow your practice from the strength of those relationships? What's your relationship like in the community? Do you have an existing client base? Your basic mechanical or technical legal skills that you're bringing to your business or your new firm that you're starting off. The greatest takeaway point here is to understand your unique strengths that you possess today, not the ones you will acquire in the future, but that you possess today, and start to build on those unique strengths rather than copy other firms as to what's out there, rather than look at other attorneys and think, well, I can copy what they're doing. You'll end up looking like them rather than focusing on your own strengths. So at Sterling, how we stumbled into doing this, I would say this is one of the principles we actually follow. When we started 11 years ago, I had zero reputation. I had practiced law. I think we started in 2014, and I had last practiced actively 2005. So I had been 9 years out of real active practice, building a caseload, meeting other attorneys, and being in front of the judges. So I had no real reputation when we started. I had no real network. In those intervening 9 years, I had started several other businesses and had been running those. So when we started, we had one skill that we felt was a killer skill, and that was digital marketing. We felt like we could do that very well. I'd come out of a business selling Dish Network satellite that it was all about digital. At our peak, we were spending $500,000 a month. And when you spend that kind of money, you have a lot of motivation to get better at it. And every percentage point we improved, it would fall right to the bottom line. I spent a lot of time developing that core skill. And that was our thesis. Our whole firm startup was based on, that's our skill. Let's build the firm on the back of digital marketing. We doubled down on that. We put all of our eggs in that basket and watched it very closely. And I had a little bit of resources too that we could test and give us a runway and a margin of error as we started the firm. That's the bird in the hand principle. Shifting to the second principle, the principle of affordable loss. Instead of focusing on potential returns, this principle suggests what we can afford to risk. That's what we look at and focus on. And I got to tell you, I have really struggled to implement this principle. And as a firm, we have not done this well. This has been one of the principles here that we have really not done well and failed at in many respects. Because I tend to look at everything as rosy, everything is going to be great, and look at all the potential returns. We're going to invest these dollars, we're going to make this much in return, it's going to be awesome, we're going to hire this person, they're going to do so great. That has not served me well over the length of our time in starting Sterling Lawyers. So this is all about taking calculated steps, baby steps. My partner today, Jeff Curlin, who runs the firm day to day, is excellent at this. He is really good at taking really small, calculated steps instead of making big bets like I'm used to doing, making big bets on the firm so we can take big leaps and big moves. When an application of family law, this is about testing new practice areas by taking on a limited number of cases to begin with. It's all about experimenting with marketing strategies using small controlled budgets. Like right now, we are doing that with an AI product. We've jumped in with, I think, $1,000 or $1,500 budget our first month, which to me is like de minimis. Another application of family law is learning how to make incremental staffing changes instead of a large scale hiring. So I had the idea a couple years ago of let's go with non-lawyer sales teammates and see if we can do some of our sales through non-lawyers rather than all through initial consultations. I hired 5 right off the bat. We had initial success, so I hired 5 more, and we lost a couple along the way. So we had 8 at one time, I remember. It was not working. It was extremely expensive. It was stressing the firm out. We had to scale back from that. That was a dumb move. I should have started with 1. We had 1 kind of going a little bit, and we should have just expanded that out, but I didn't listen. I pushed that hard, and we ended up having to pay a lot of money for that lesson. Another one is around technology. I have been really aggressive about implementing technology solutions, thinking they're going to be the savior for everything, and they're going to make everything perfect, and that has almost never worked out that way. Trying pilot programs instead of full implementation, that's the key here. So that's the application of family law. That's where we have really struggled. I've really struggled with this, and learning, watching Jeff Curlin operate and see how he does that within our firm. It's been great. All right, third principle, the lemonade principle. This is about embracing surprises, which are going to come. You run a practice, you're going to have surprises, and learning from them and how to do that. I think we've done this pretty well at the firm. So in family law, what this looks like is when a case takes an unexpected turn, how can you use that to improve your client screening process? So we do fixed fee at our practice, and we've had many cases that have taken an unexpected turn that end up costing us considerably more in time and resources than what we charge the client. We can't go back and renegotiate after we're done with a case, so we live with what we've done rather than try to see if we can get the value to equalize. Another way this is applied in family law is if you're marketing approach is struggling, it's not working, analyze it, adjust your strategy. And what do you have to change? Is it something with the creative? Is it something with the sales funnel? Is it the type of traffic you're sending into it? It's taking those measured steps, tweaking in a controlled way along the way to get that to work. So when you get those big surprises, make those adjustments. Another application in family law is, how can you take a client complaint and turn that into an opportunity to improve your service, enhance it in some way? Some of our best learnings have come from clients that have complained about how we did something. It's been a real instrumental way to improve our service incrementally. So at Sterling, when we had COVID come through, it exposed some real cracks in our operations. And coming out of that, we completely reconfigured the entire firm. It took us a year to do that throughout 21 and into 22 to get that done. But it was because COVID exposed some real problems in our fees and how we structured those and how we structured our firm and the flow of client cases through the firm. One thing that came out of that that's still with us today that was extremely positive is that at that time, everything went to video. All of our consuls had to go to video at that point as well. And we were already doing some video conference, not necessarily in the consult, but with clients. And once we got into COVID, everyone went to video, and we've stuck with it. And it's been awesome because we're able to get teammates from all over the country to help us with our intake and with our sales. So that's been one of the positive benefits coming out of COVID. Well, hello, Jeff here. My team and I put out a weekly newsletter designed for family law practitioners to help you grow and build your practice. So if you go to my website at jsterlinghughes.com, that's Hughes, that's jsterlinghughes.com, and subscribe, it would mean the world to me. And what I will do for you there is I will send you weekly content to help you build and grow your practice, as well as news and developments in the greater world of family law. Thank you, and back to the show. Principle number 4, the crazy quilt principle. This is about building strategic partnerships and collaborations rather than focusing on your competition. I think it's almost always a loser's game to focus on what your competition is doing. You focus on them, you'll end up looking like them. Now, that is not to say that you just ignore what your competitors are doing. It is wise to occasionally check in and see what's happening, what's their market share look like, what some of the ways they're coming to market and serving clients. But any sort of focus on them because you want to reconfigure your firm or you want to enhance it by taking their ideas and making their own, I think it's just a foolish game over time. There are certainly one-offs, but over time, the aggregate on that is just foolish. Instead, building your own partnerships, your own network like a patchwork quilt with each part, each piece of that contributing something unique, I think is where the real value is at. So how do you do this and apply this in family law? Well, you start by building relationships with other professionals that serve your client base. In family law, that looks like building relationships with therapists. That's a huge one. With other attorneys who are not in your practice area that will refer clients to you, building relationships in an authentic way with them. And the list goes on with a host of other professionals, whether they be business valuators, real estate appraisers, things like that, are all ways to do that. So at Sterling, one of my biggest mistakes, and I look back on our first 6 or 7 years and I point to this as the one single mistake that stands out to me that I had control over that I wish I would have done differently, is I did not build a network of other lawyers that I could bounce ideas off, mastermind with, and benchmark certain things with. I didn't cultivate those relationships. It wasn't until about year 9 that I woke up to that. I have several other groups that I'm a part of that are mastermind groups that are in business in general. And I learned a ton of stuff with them. But when it came to masterminding with other lawyers, that was a big blind spot and miss. I think a lot of it had to do with just arrogance, thinking I knew more than they did. Unfortunately, that was my attitude, and that's where that came from. So today at Sterling, we don't really pay much attention to the local relationships. That's really hard for us to scale. That seems to be like an individual lawyer thing for enhancing their own network, building their own referral base. We don't do a lot of that promotion at the corporate level because we're in 20 plus locations over 2 states. It's really hard for us to do that with any sort of consistency. So we encourage our lawyers to do that, but we just don't do that. So all of our relationships that we're building on the corporate level, like the leadership level, are with folks that are running other firms and larger organizations, because that's where we get our most value. Early on, I was so obsessed with what our competitors were doing, and I did not focus on building my own relationships. I was just so obsessed with our size versus our competitor size, and I did so much of that measuring, which was just foolish. It just made me look at other people rather than focus on building our own capabilities. When I finally started focusing on building our own firm capabilities, that's when we started to see the most margin and real growth within our firm. And we built capabilities that we didn't have, such as how we handled fixed fee, both selling it and delivering it. We've made a capability, a pretty strong capability off of recruiting. We now can recruit extremely well across all positions in our firm, which has been a big win. That's come in the past 2 years with our HR team led by Robin. We've learned how to build operational efficiency with overseas teammates, and that's been a real value add. Our financial acumen up and down the firm has been terrific. It's getting better. We're able to analyze the business much more granularly than we would have been, not just on the leadership level, but even down on the management level and with some of the attorneys. It's been a real joy to see us, instead of focusing on competitors, focus on building our own capabilities, our own patchwork quilt, so to speak. Final principle number 5, my favorite one, the pilot in the plane principle. This emphasizes focusing on what you can control. I love that concept, rather than worry about things that are outside of our control. This is about staying present, taking action, rather than getting lost in all of the planning and things that you can't control. I used to think that planning was so important, to plan out 3 and 5 years, but what I planned for 3 and 5 years has never happened. Maybe this happened in 10 years, but it never has happened in 3 to 5 years. It always takes me longer than I think it should or how I plan for. So focus on what you control. Now, how does this apply in family law? How can you take this principle and apply it into your practice? Focus on improving your internal processes rather than worrying about your competitors. Big win for our firm. That means investing in what you can control, your team's training, your systems, your client experience. It means building flexible strategies that can adapt to changing circumstances within the culture and growing from AI. How will that change how we practice, or even the hiring habits of our clients, which I'm concerned about? I'm watching that very closely and building strategies as a team on how we can adapt. It's about making decisions based on your current reality rather than future prediction. Here's how this really served well, especially as we went through COVID. We got into April and May, and we had, of course, the shutdowns, right? We're in Wisconsin, Illinois, and our states shut down significantly. So our office that was prior to that was full, was like 3 or 4 of us there. It was pretty radical. Our phones basically quit ringing for about 2 weeks, and we started to get concerned. We knew that PPP might happen. That would have given us a bridge. And so we okay, we can't control that. We don't know when it's going to happen. Let's do everything we can. So we buckled down. We had daily meetings explaining everything we were doing. We shared that with the entire team. We started looking at everything within our span of control and optimizing it. We made a commitment to the team. We don't want to lay off anybody. We're going to do everything in our power to avoid that. Instead, we're going to focus internally on what can we do to get better in every aspect, in every phase of our entire operation. We grew that year, realized we needed to configure the firm because it exposed some significant flaws in how we had set up our model. And so we spent the next year to year and a half after that making the necessary changes to make our model viable for a scaling, growing, future-oriented law firm. Who we are today is because of COVID. And I am so thankful for that happened from a standpoint of our business, because it pushed us to focus inward on what we can control, not outward on things that were completely out of our control, especially what's going on in the greater economy. And so that pushed us through and helped us get through, and I'm thankful that we were able to do that. So focusing on what you can control. So the beauty of these principles is that you can start applying them right away, no matter where your firm is in its journey. And if you found this helpful, you will want to watch this video right here, Leverage Constraints to Build Your Family Law Firm. It's the perfect companion to what we just covered. Click here to watch it now.